Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the fourth episode of the Failure Show. I'm very happy to have a sports star for a change in this episode. Her name is Aditi Mutatkar. I'm sure she needs no introduction for sports enthusiasts and especially badminton enthusiasts of our country. I'll to introduce her very briefly. Aditi Mutatkar, she has been a national and international athlete from Pune. She has won the silver medal in mixed team event in the 2010 Commonwealth Games held in Delhi. She has also been the runners up at the India Grand Prix in 2019. She has been ranked 27th in the world when she registered her career best performance at the Bitburger Open. She has also won 5 national badminton championships in all age categories, and she has only been the third woman in India to achieve this feat. A very warm welcome, Aditi, and thank you so much for agreeing to give this interview for us.
Thank you so much, Pranusha. I hope we have a nice chat and people enjoy watching the show.
Definitely. I hope we have a lot to learn from you and your journey.
I hope so. I'm just going to be as honest as possible, and I hope people like what I say.
Yeah. So my first question to you is, you have won several national and international championships in badminton, and you have been into this sport since your early childhood. What motivated you to get into professional sports at such a young age?
Yeah, so I think I was a very hyperactive kid, and my parents were kind of looking for a segue to kind of calm me down. I think so. So
Okay.
they would just they thought that with the kind of energy that I had, I could do well in sports. I think, and that's how they could just take me anywhere. If my father went to play cricket, I would just go with him. If he would go to play badminton, I would join him there. So that's how I think the badminton thing started, because my father was a decent player, and he took me up. We used to play outdoor badminton, and he would just throw the shuttle at me, and I would hit the shuttle, and I was pretty good at it, right from the beginning. I think, I mean, I was good at the hand-eye coordination and all of that.
Okay.
And yeah, I think my father was one of the important factors here. Also, I think my mom gave me the genes in some way, because my mom was herself a kabaddi and a kho athlete, and she used to run 800 meters when she was in college.
Okay.
And she has done her her bachelor's in physical education herself. So she also had this background. So I think the genes came from my mother.
Okay.
But how I got into badminton, I think my father was responsible.
Wow, that's great. So, what caught my attention was your recent article, which was published in the Indian Express, where you have detailed your journey of being an opponent to Saina Nehwal during national championships. What inspired me the most, it was beautifully written, by the way.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
what inspired me was the way you described how media treated you being a silver medalist. The media kind of did not, instead of celebrating your success, it kept portraying as if you have lost, as if you're a failure. And you have written that this affected you, and for a very long time you internalized this and kept feeling as if you're a failure. Could you share something more in detail about this, especially generalizing this journey? How do sports people deal with winning and losing the match? What effect does it have on you, especially because there is so much of expectation and pressure on you to win? And
Yeah.
does it cause any anxiety?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of questions there. So let me start with the Saina's article that I had written. So yeah, so I think, see, I don't think that the media treated me as a failure. I think what I wanted to kind of say was that it basically forgot. It basically forgot
Okay.
that there is a whole lot of bunch of us who are playing, and who are also, maybe they are not as great as Saina, but maybe they also deserve certain amount of attention, and that's the truth overall in sport. I mean, we basically celebrate the great victories, we celebrate the greater champions, right? But there's a whole lot of athlete ecosystem which is below that, and that is actually not spoken about as much. That is what I meant. And I don't think the media was responsible to make me feel like a failure. I think what happened with me personally, when I was at the number 2 position, wasn't the fact that I felt like a failure, but I just kept feeling that whatever I did would just never be good enough, because everything I did was being compared to someone like Saina Nehwal. And the questions that I had for myself was like, I mean, should I even work towards, winning a Grand Prix? Or, I mean, will it even matter? Because Saina by that time was already beating, winning, really huge tournaments like a super series event, which is like one of the top events in badminton. So she was already winning those. So for me it was like, will I, whatever I do, will I actually ever be good enough? And luckily for me, at least, I, though these thoughts did come to mind, I kept at it, and I kept playing, and I kept doing what I could do best, and I still had a decent career. And again, what happens is, it's very human to compare yourself, right? You tend to compare yourself to the next best, and it's never good enough. For example, I'm sure that even Saina at her position might be comparing. I'm just making a hypothetical statement, but I'm just saying that as human, it's very natural for us to compare ourselves to the next best. Right. And that's where the problem starts, I think, because I think somewhere you will have to start. If you, I think, what I did better later on in my career was to actually compare my achievements to my own self. Because, I mean, from where I came from, what were my limitations? Like, for example, I always had an issue with injuries. Like, right from the age of 17, I was riddled with career-threatening injuries. But even with that, I continued to play for the next 8 years. I still won the 5 national championships. I still played 2 Grand Prix finals. I still reached 27 in the world. So with whatever limitations I had, I still did what I did. But to realize that, I think it took a long time, because, like I said, I was in an ecosystem where I was kind of playing with an athlete like Saina Nehwal at that time, and whole of India was behind her, and whole of India was focused on what she was doing, and we were all so focused on her that everybody else kind of was also focusing on her. Like, as athletes, even we were thinking of, oh, okay, she's done this, so we will have to do this. I mean, it became like that, right? And I think what she was doing didn't have a precedence in India, and not just in badminton, but in sport in general. I mean, she was one of the first women, I think, in India to have taken over the world in such a big way, and she was so consistent with it. So it was a very difficult what do you say, like a thing to compare yourself with, because such athletes don't come every once in a while, right? I mean, it happens sometimes, and maybe fortunately and unfortunately, I was at the number 2 position of this, but I actually think it was good, because I saw one of the golden era of badminton, and I was witness to that. If I played my part in a small way, but at least I got to witness it. So I think that is what I meant through that article, that we need to basically celebrate the whole ecosystem, and everybody needs to get their due, and it needs to come. I mean, I don't think, I mean, media is doing its job by kind of highlighting the top athletes and the top players and all of that, but it also needs to, I think, highlight the national circuit. What is happening at the national level with our national athletes who may not be Sindhu or Saina, because even they are as important, because they will be taking the next journey after maybe Sindhu, Saina retire, right? So we need to prepare, and we need to know who these athletes are, and we don't know. I mean, the general audience doesn't know about them. So that is what I meant. And another thing was, like I said, like, we have to, as athletes, stop comparing ourselves to any other athlete. It's about your own journey. It's about enjoying your own journey, and having faith in it. Having faith in your journey and making sure that even if the world around you feels like it's telling you that it's not as important, it is important, because you are playing your part, and it's very important to do your part. So that is what I wanted to say through that article, I think. And the second part of your question that you said about, how do athletes deal with failure? Because it's a very important part of our profession, right? I mean, you are winning one day, but then you're losing the next day. But I, at least for me personally, I enjoyed it both in a way, because I think and that is also why I succeeded in a way in it, because I think because I took it all in my stride. I was very sincere, and I was very motivated, self-motivated to kind of keep working hard. I absolutely loved the sport. I absolutely loved match situations. I absolutely loved the pressure, of being number one, I was number one as a junior. Then I became number two. Then I became number 8. I mean, I have played at all the levels, and I absolutely enjoyed it till right up till the end, when I decided I don't enjoy it anymore and I should be stopping. But I think it comes, how do we deal with failure? At least for me as an athlete, I could deal with it well, because I absolutely love what I did. And I think if you don't love what you do, and you're doing things because somebody else expects you to do them, I mean, for example, like if my coach expected me to become an All England champion or like a world champion, and I failed him or her, and I'm doing it for him or her and not for myself, that's where it starts getting difficult, because then you'll never be good enough, because you are constantly doing it for someone else's desire or someone else's need. But if it is coming from your own self, that I want to play, I want to become the national champion, I want to go and train every morning at 6, even if I lose or if I win, if that is the way you are dealing with it, I think failure becomes marginally easy to kind of deal with. And yes, there are moments of anxiety, there are moments of stress, and there are moments where you are really down. But I think what I was also, another thing that I did well was to talk it over. I'd never kept my emotions inside of me. I think when I was feeling threatened, or when I was not feeling really good about something, I would find somebody to talk to about it. Like it could be my coach, or it could be my mother, or I am absolutely good at asking for help. When I need it, I ask for it. And I think that is another important thing that helped me deal with failure. And I think the third strategy would be to actually not take yourself too seriously. I think somewhere down the line, we start thinking that the whole world revolves around us. And that's not the case. One match, if you lose, it doesn't mean anything in the universe, actually. I mean, understand where you are, where do you stand in this whole wide universe. And if you just can laugh it off and, okay, I mean, I lost, I start again. If you can take it with that attitude, in sport especially, you might go a long way. Yeah.
Okay. I kind of resonated with you when you said that we have this constant need to compare ourselves, because I also find myself doing that many times, and it does affect my mental peace. And I'm sure many viewers have faced this emotion, which is so natural.
Sure.
And also in my experience, I found that most of us hesitate to ask for help. Because we start feeling we will look small or weak if we ask for help. So that was really interesting coming from you, that it's okay to ask for help. It actually strengthens us in our journey.
Yeah, I think our strength comes from our vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable. You're human. I mean, and that's where you find the strength. I mean, if you do not, if you guard yourself and take yourself too seriously, and you can't be honest with what you're feeling, it's very difficult to build relationships, and it's very difficult to meet the right people, I think. So yeah, but your vulnerability is your strength. Yeah.
That's a very beautiful statement. And another interesting thing about your profile is that you are also a master's in public affairs from the University of Texas at Dallas, and you also hold a graduate certificate in public policy from the Takshashila Foundation. This is very rare to see a international athlete to also be interested in public policy. We would like to know what motivated you to pursue public policy.
Sure. So like we were talking about being the second best or being a silver medalist and all of that. So I think the start of my academic journey was from there, because I think because I left with a feeling that maybe I didn't celebrate my journey as much, or I wasn't taken that seriously or whatever. I had that hunger to again prove myself, and maybe athletes always have that. We are so competitive in nature, but we just want to be the best, and we want to keep, we like the limelight. I think that's something that I'm being very honest here, because we are used to being in the newspapers, and we like all of that. So I think choosing an academic career was not about the limelight really, but it was about this fact, that hunger that I had, that I still have things to prove and I still need to do more, and something like, I think it came from there. But the other thing that motivated me to do this was the fact that I wanted to work at the grassroots level in India, because I knew that there is so much to do. For example, we know that women don't participate in sport as much as men do. There are various reasons for that. So why does that happen? I had all these questions in my head. Also, like for example, I played badminton, elite badminton, and in that I always found a certain demography of athletes. I never saw athletes coming from maybe marginally a little, financially constrained kind of families. I just didn't find them as an athlete, and I thought that was a big hurdle, because I knew that there was talent even at the most grassroots levels in India. There is great talent out there, but it was just not getting its due. So I knew all of these things as an athlete. I had seen all of these things. So I was really interested in understanding two things. One was, how could I get into the social sector? And that's why I did my master's in public affairs, and I specialized in non-profit management. So my idea was to kind of work at the grassroots level and work in the social sector in India, to kind of, work from ground level up in sport especially. So that was one thing. And policy, why I did my certification in public policy as well, was because I wanted to understand how policies are made. How policies are made in India. What are the factors that are taken under consideration? Because I know that India does have a sports policy, but nothing really seems to percolate down. Somewhere we lose the track, maybe in the implementation of it. We have great ideas, I think, but we somewhere lose track in the implementation part of it, or things like that. So I was really curious to understand how it happens, how it works in India, and what role maybe as an athlete, former athlete, could I play in it. So I think that's where that's how I charted the journey, basically, to kind of work at the grassroots level in the social sector with sports, and to understand how policies work in India, and especially when it comes to sports policy, where we are, why we are where we are. So I had all these questions. So I think I found some of my answers through these degrees.
Okay. Could you tell us, based on your experience and also studying public policy, what could be improved in Indian badminton and also sports policy in general?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have seen happen, of course, is that sport is it's a state subject, right? It's not a central subject. So center subject. So what happens is that there is a national policy that is in place, which is quite old now, but there is a policy in place. But then the states basically have their own independent policies as well, wherein they decide what their policies are going to be and what they are going to do about it. So when it comes to, and then when you take a sport out of it, then I have not seen much connections between the actual state policies and a games policy, because a game is run totally independently by a federation in India. Like, for example, badminton is run by the Badminton Federation, Badminton Association of India. So they run the whole thing. They are in charge of, creating tournaments, following the rankings, sending players for tournaments abroad, making Indian teams, making these announcements. So that is a completely different kind of a ball game. But when it comes to when we come back to the policy, see, some states have really good policies.
Okay.
What happens generally is that most of these things fail at the implementation level, because what we have to understand is that India is such a complex country.
Yeah.
I mean, each state, I mean, you can't, I mean, having central policies, first of all, it's very difficult to work, because every state has its own issues, has its own culture, has its own unique kind of problems, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot copy paste what works in one state to the other state. So I understand the fact that we need state policies, but then even with the state policies, even within the states, if you look at the interiors of those states, every interior has its own culture, it has its own issues. Like, for example, one village will have water but the other doesn't have water. So if you don't have water, that means your girls, especially, for example, just for a hypothetical example, your girls especially are just spending time bringing water from the other village. So that means your girls will not get enough time to actually play, which means anything you do, if you have a small camp running, for sports camp running in that village, it will not work, because the girls will not come, because water is more important than playing a sport. And men are not supposed to get the water in a culture, so it's going to be the woman. So then how do you solve the issue? So then you have to actually solve the water issue, so that the village gets the water in every house. That means the girls get some time, that means they can come for the sports camp. So it's like that, it's that difficult, and we have to understand that. So even when we keep criticizing what does the government do, and it's they make these policies but don't implement it, it's just really difficult to implement it, right? So I think, I think our last national policy was, I think 10, 15, I'm not sure how many years back, but it was it's quite old now. And we need to kind of have a new policy on board for sure. But I would think that every state, like I said, would have its policies. Like, I know for a fact that I've read the Karnataka sports policy, and it's pretty good again. But again, it kind of fails when it comes to the actual implementation, because you either don't get the funding for sports. It's the least priority, right? Anything for you kind of fund through a policy for sport, any time of the day, it will just be taken out for something more important, like hunger or water, and that's understandable, because what do? You're a developing country and you can't be spending as much money on sport. So I think it's a very complex issue. I understand it a little better now. When I was on the outside, I would just criticize and sit on my chair and say, what the hell, they don't know anything and they're not serious about. But I think it's just really difficult, and that's why I think the role of social organizations, the role of corporates, the role of people in general, in addition to what the government is doing, I think we all also have to join hands to really see some change at the ground level. Otherwise, it's not going to be and another interesting thing that I heard at Takshashila, like when I spoke about in my class of 52, I was of course the only one who was talking about sports policy, and they're like, what sports? and they were like, come on, we have not even solved hunger, and you're talking about. And I'm like, come on, I mean, we need to have a sports policy, and nobody took me seriously. And I think it was right, because they said, I mean, we have to understand the priority of the government right now. It's not sport. I mean, I understand now it is, because a little bit, because the Tokyo Olympics is coming in and all of that. But we have to just accept it, that we as at the policy level, to get some seriousness on sport, as a country, we have not reached there, because we have different priorities that we need to take care of. And I understand that now. I'm in a better place to understand that now.
Okay, but don't you think sports can be fit into health? Because now, for example, there's this Fit India policy.
Yes.
So the government could do something for sports as a part of health.
Yeah, I mean, see, sport has become a part of education now. Like, I mean, for example, physical education is something that is considered compulsory in schools now, because it's a
Yeah.
part of the education policy as well. So there is a place for sports in the education policy. When it comes to health, yeah, for sure. I mean, sport is a very, very important instrument that can be used very well. But I think, what happens is that, we uh, to see two different ministries or two different places working together to kind
Okay.
of solve something is very difficult, I think. I mean, as a system, it's very difficult to join hands and come up with things that they can do together.
Yeah.
I mean, very recently, I know that the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports did a joint session with Ministry of, I think, Women and children, I think, family welfare, sorry. They did something there where they kind of had a thing where there was a curriculum which was launched for women physical education teachers. So
Okay.
you see these kind of initiatives happening, but it is kind of here and there. I mean, there is no real policy to mix and match health and sport. And another thing which is very important to understand here is the way we look at sport. So, for
Okay.
example, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports is only concerned about the medals. It's not
Okay.
really concerned about how is the health of the nation. I mean, because right,
Okay.
their goal is to ensure India wins as many Olympic medals as possible. So health
Okay.
is not something that is a very big part of the policy. So and which I understand, because as a but what I feel is that sport needs to be looked at from a very holistic kind of a way. Right now we look at it with a very myopic view, where you just get grassroots athletes, get them to win medals for the country, and I understand that. But I think we are missing a opportunity here to use sport more holistically for the nation, right? And
Yeah.
there is, of course, the policy talks about making India a sporting nation, but what does that mean? I really don't know. What do you mean by saying we should make India a sporting nation? Does that
Yeah.
mean that everybody is on the road running? Does that mean that everybody is watching sports on television? Does that mean that women at 60 years of age are playing football on the ground? I mean, I don't know what that means. We have not defined it yet for ourselves, right? I mean, what does it mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I know that health is a very important thing that sport can influence, but I don't still see a confluence of different kind of ministries coming together and building something with sport, which is a missed opportunity and which should be looked for. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned about how, say, for example, girls in rural areas miss out on sports because they have to fetch water. So, something related to this is the general culture which we have with respect to women and sports. So, what has been your experience as a female athlete in India? Especially also because, for example, the funding given to women's sports in India is far less when we compare it to the infrastructural support which men's sports get.
Yeah, so luckily for me, Pranusha, I actually had great support from the family,
Okay.
and of course, in the beginning, it wasn't easy because somewhere there was pressure to perform, because my family. So I come from middle class family where my father was a banker and my mother was a school teacher, and
Okay.
badminton is a very expensive sport.
Yeah.
A racket could cost you 10,000, 5,000. Your shuttle is like 75 rupees per shuttle, which can break in like 1 minute. So you're talking about, as a beginner, you are spending so much money just on the shuttles and you're not even hitting the shuttle sometimes. So
Okay.
so it's just really
Okay.
expensive to make an
Okay.
investment like that. So I think my parents were very clear about the fact that they cannot support my sport in terms of a hobby. They told me that,
Okay.
if you perform, if you stay at the top, it is something that we will invest money in. If you're looking at it to do some kind of, just kind of let's go and spend some time somewhere and let's go get fit. If you're doing it for something like that, we cannot handle it. I mean, financially, it is just not possible.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, right from the beginning, I started performing. I was winning tournaments right away, and that luckily for me showed my parents that I was, kind of I could do this, and they should be investing in me. And financially, by the time I was 16, I was taken up by Bharat Petroleum. They have public sector companies basically take on the top athletes in the country to support them financially. So I was taken up at the age of 16. So once that happened, I was kind of okay with the finances, I think. So that was one thing. But also just the culture at my place, it was really open, Pransha. Like I never had an issue with my mom where she said ki, "Nahi, you should not wear a skirt, or you should, or not go out alone, or you should not travel alone for tournaments. I will not let you go alone anywhere." She was very free. I think she saw how much I loved the sport, and she saw how much I could do, I guess, and how driven I was. And so luckily for me, fortunately for me, my parents were very supportive, and the gender thing never really hit me as hard. I started understanding gender and how it affects, at least sports, women, a little later in life. But at least as a kid, I had a dream house, I guess, for an athlete to flourish.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Talking about funding for women's sports, what has been your experience when you compare your training, not just your training, your peers also, peer female athletes, when you compare yourselves with international athletes against whom you played? Did you find any difference in the training quality and also access to resources?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we started off, yes, I think there was a major difference. For example, when I was at least playing at the age of 17 and 18, when I used to go for international tournaments, I would always see every athlete being covered by like 4 people. Like one was a physio, one was a coach, one was a nutritionist, one was your masseur, and that woman would be like covered with 5-6 people after every match. But when it came to us, we never had that. We never had a support staff individually designed for us or anything like that. We just had one coach traveling with us who would take care of the whole team and all our matches. So yes, at the beginning, I'm sure there was a lack of professionalism just all over the place. And we never, it was funding, it was also awareness of the athlete themselves that we need to kind of look at it in a more professional way. So it was all of that. But I think, especially with Saina's rise and at least from badminton, I can say this, that once Gopi and Saina and Prakasa, of course, Prakasa and Vimal sir with their academy, once they started producing these international achievements, the whole thing started getting a little more professional. I think we also started having our own individual teams, and luckily they, of course, I mean, again, the funding was an issue when it came to the level 2, level 3, level 4 players. For example, like we do not have as much support for athletes even today at the state or at the district level, right? We do not have that much support, but we do have support now for players who are playing for the country already. Like, for example, there is the top scheme by the government, where most of our top athletes are completely funded by the government. In addition to that, we have Olympic Gold Quest and Go Sports doing some great work. They are both foundations, but they have adopted so many athletes who are at a certain level and who can get international medals for India. So now today it's getting much better. There is much more support, financial support as well, and it is overall gender neutral. I think the problem of gender, if you see, it's not at the elite level really. I think the problem is at the grassroots level when it comes to participation. So, for example, I did a small study on Sports Authority of India's schemes. Like they run different schemes, right? So if you look at that and you look and compare the men and women participation in these schemes, only 30% in the overall schemes, there is only a 30% participation of women, and that's it. I mean, there is nobody. 60% is men, and it's overall through the years it's been like that. Similarly, if you look at the support staff, if you look at female coaches, if you look at the administration of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sport, and I mean the governing bodies and all of that, it's just really sad. I mean, we just don't have any decent amount of women there. Like, it's, for example, in the SAI coaches list there is 17% women. For at the Indian Olympic Association, which is like our which is a very big center head kind of all our associations and federations, we have like 59 members, in which maybe 3 are women. So it's actually bad at the ecosystem and the grassroots level. The support and the kind of participation that needs to be there, but it's decent at the elite level. At the elite level today, we are at a better place when it comes to women funding, women participation, women performance as well. I mean, women are performing better than men right now when it comes to elite sports.
Okay. So what do you think can be done at the grassroots level to encourage more young girls to pick up sports?
Yeah, so see, Pranusha, for this, the answer can be anything, right? I mean, the answer can be we need more toilets on our playgrounds. The answer, because I mean, that is something which is a big problem. Right? If you don't have a place to go to toilet in a ground in a village, you have to run to your house. I mean, the guys can do anything, but the girls can't, right? So that could be an issue. It could be that just the safety, right? Parents don't feel safe to send their girls out to play with boys because they just don't feel safe. So there could be myriad of problems, but I think what needs to be done before we answer this question is actually going on the ground and researching this bit. The last paper or a last research done on gender and sports in India when it comes to sports was done by the National Commission of Women, and it was done back in, I think, 2002 or 2000, I think 2010, right? And after that, there has been no research on the subject, and we really need, I think, for me as a program head for the women initiatives in Simply Sport, that is the first thing that I'm looking at doing. That I need to basically know what the problems are. And again, like I said, India is a very complex country. We can come up with set of issues, but again, it will the success of how we can get more girls playing at the grassroots level would be to actually understand local issues and come up with programs that solve those issues. You can't come with a set of programs and say, let's copy paste it. Haan, India, Mumbai mein chal gaya to Jharkhand mein bhi chal jayega. It won't, because Mumbai and Jharkhand have just different culture altogether, different issues altogether. So yes, there will be a set of problems which are common, but then we will have to come up with programs which are more suited to that region, to those parts of the country, and only then success will be seen. So I think the first step to get more girls playing is to actually do the research, which is extensive, which is data based, which comes up with recommendations which are objective and doable, sustainable also. And then once you come up with that, then you can go to different states, different regions, and kind of individualize programs according to those regions. So I think it's a long journey, but the first step needs to be research before even we talk about what is the problem, because we really do not know. It can be anything right now. Because I'll just give you a small example. For example, like in our cities, right? Like look at Bangalore, or look at even Bombay, for example. When you go on a playground, you just don't see women. I mean, like I always give this example, like Shivaji Park in Dadar. It's one of the very iconic kind of places in Bombay. And when you go there, there are like hundreds and thousands of guys playing cricket or just running around, but there's not one girl, and I just don't understand it. I mean, now here the issue is not public safety for sure. I mean, you have so many people around, but you just don't see that coming. So is it just the fact that women have just given up on sport? Is it the fact that it's just culturally we are not there? What is it? So I think that's why I say that you need to understand the issue really before saying ye karenge to ho jayega. It won't work like that. Yeah.
This description took me back to my experience recently. So my hometown is Dharwad. It is a very small place when you compare it with metro cities.
Sure.
I one day decided to go on a run. There's a playground nearby, public playground, and I mean, I was so uncomfortable, mainly because of what you just now described. There were
Mhm.
only guys in that playground. It
Sure.
and they were staring at me as if, I don't know, maybe they thought I'm an athlete, or I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me really uncomfortable, as if I'm doing something which is an anomaly.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
I can
Sure.
only imagine what young girls in rural areas might be feeling, who are
Yeah.
really interested to pursue it as a profession.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll just give you an example. This is a very interesting story which was featured recently. I don't remember where, but so this she was a Sai athlete. I am from Maharashtra, and
Okay.
I think she played hockey or something. And she, lost the. I mean, Sai basically because of COVID recently. Sai had to send a lot of athletes back home just to kind of keep them safe, or keep the other elite athletes safe, or whatever, to kind of give them a nice place to train and all of that.
Okay.
So they just send these athletes back. So this girl, a young girl, a really good hockey player, came back to her house, and then there was a picture of her in that story which said that she has stopped training because she's in rural Maharashtra. Her expectation from the family is not that she should go and train, but it is to cook food, it is to take care of her siblings, it is to wash the clothes, it's to get the water. And now currently, since she's back from Sai, she's not got a chance to hold her hockey stick because she has to take care of the family, right?
Okay.
And these are the kind of repercussions that happen, and these affect women more than men, because what happens when they are inside, they are completely off the patriarchal nature of things, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody is an athlete and everybody is there to train. But
Yeah.
the moment they come back to their houses, it changes, because then that expectation is not for them to become an athlete and get us a medal. The expectation is just do your job, get into the kitchen, make rotis, help your siblings get ready for whatever they want to get ready for. So it just changes, and they live in these two different universe. The girls, especially from rural India, when they are
Yeah.
at home and when they are actually training, they live in these kind of circumstances, and you have to be sensitive to that. And so I think that's how we are placed when it comes to our rural Indian girls, who and they are just supremely talented. They are just unbelievable,
Okay.
because they know they have worked hard all their lives. They are used to physical hardships. They are used to living with less, right? They're used to
Yeah.
all of these things which are so important to be successful in sport. But yeah, that's the reality. It always affects the woman worse than the man when you take sports out of her life, because women, it's
Yeah.
the kind of patriarchal society we live in.
Yeah.
It becomes very difficult for a rural woman to fight it out and say, no, no, I will not do the utensils because I have to go and train. Nobody gives her that support.
Yeah. I hope things change. I hope we change. I
Yeah,
mean, our
I mean,
society.
there's a long way to go, but I am hopeful it will change. Yeah.
So, how do you explain this concept of winning and losing to your students, since you are also a coach now? Uh, uh, Again, coming back to the societal pressure and expectation to only win as a sports person,
Mhm.
how do you talk about this to young kids?
So especially the younger kids, I actually believe that the talking needs to be done with the parents. It's not with the kids. For
Okay.
for the kids, it's just a way the game is. I mean, for them, actually, it's not that difficult to win, and it's not that difficult to lose and to deal with it. I mean, it's a part they understand. It's a part and parcel of the sport. What
Okay.
makes it difficult for the kid is when he goes home and the parent is like, "Why did you lose to that guy? You're supposed to beat him because he the
Yeah.
I mean, if the ecosystem that the kid is surrounded by is constantly comparing the kid with somebody else, is constantly putting the pressure of winning, is constantly making losing sound like a crime, is constantly not giving losing its due, and taking it lightly, especially at that age, at 9 and 10, I have seen parents fighting over line calls and saying no, she lied and she won, and these are the parents fighting, these are not the children fighting.
Okay.
And that makes it difficult to deal with winning and
Okay.
losing. And see, the thing is, what you have to understand is that as kids, they learn a lot through experience, they learn a lot through kind of reflecting on the experience. And if you start giving them the lessons beforehand, for example, if I say losing sucks, for example, if I go to the kid, he's lost the match, and I say losing sucks, it may be true for me, it may not be true for him. The question should be just simple: how are you feeling? Are you how are you feeling about this loss? I mean, how have you taken it? You
Okay.
have to kind of help them deep dive into their emotions. You can't build that emotion for them by yourself. As a coach, you can't tell them how to feel, that you
Okay.
should be feeling shitty, or we have trained so hard and you just came and lost the match. If I as a coach start talking like that, or if I as a parent start putting that kind of pressure on them, then the whole joy of just playing and going through these motions, because what we have to understand is that in a sport, this is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Winning and losing is inevitable. And
Yeah.
if you start making everything such a big deal right from the beginning, then it's just going to be I've seen so many athletes, talented athletes, leaving the sport because they just couldn't take the pressure at home, pressure from coaches, pressure from the overall peers. I am not joking. I had a 14-year-old girl with her mom coming to me and saying, I'm taking medication for depression. Because for what? Because she just lost to some random girl in some district tournament, and it gets that bad. And that is the atmosphere. If the atmosphere around them is like that, so competitive, so pulling each other down kind of an atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the ecosystem that they are playing in. It's the same when they are at their homes. It just becomes very difficult for the kids to enjoy the sport. And I'm guaranteeing you that if you let the kid be and let him just go through these emotions, I mean, even the winning should be simply celebrated as the losing. I mean, both of them needs to get equal standing, especially for a young athlete. It
Yeah.
starts making more meaning as they grow older, but for young athletes, you just have to let them enjoy. Because if you take the enjoyment of competition away from them, they are going to stop playing. They'll not come for practice, right? So
Okay.
as a coach, I think what I have tried to do is to kind of make them understand what they are feeling. Is it make them make their own decisions? Is it right to feel that way? Is it wrong to feel that way? We have to give them more credit because they understand these things. They are not stupid. Most of the times we
Yeah.
feel ki unko kya samjhega, they don't know it is not like that. At their level, they are capable of understanding things. If we look at them as thinking individuals, I think we will approach them in a much better way. What
Okay.
the way we approach them is that if we approach them from a little pedestal and say, I know what is good for you, it will be a very different kind of relationship, I think. So I think for young athletes, my suggestion is to actually talk to the ecosystem that they are in. Check
Okay.
yourself as a coach. What are you telling them about winning and losing? How are you treating them with winning and losing? Talk to the parents when they go home. How are they dealing? I mean, it shouldn't even be a conversation. I mean, how did you play? Did you play well? That's it. I mean, you don't need to pester that kid about why did you lose to this certain player or that certain player. And so
Okay.
I think the ecosystem needs to be checked more than the athlete.
Okay.
And we have to just give them the respect that they deserve and treat them like thinking individuals who can think for themselves, who can go through the emotions, who are strong enough to understand what's good and what's bad for them. And I'm sure whenever I have done that as a coach, I have seen them really fly. But whenever
Okay.
I have kind of told them, nahi, ye correct hai or ye wrong hai, most of the time I have failed. And I've not learned this like this, right? I mean, it has been a process. I also was somebody who thought that I can preach and things will get done, but it never works like that. It just never works like that. Yeah.
Okay. In retrospect, when you think about your career, what do you think has been your biggest failure, which actually helped you to evolve as a person?
Uh, my biggest failure. Yeah, I would. I would think that, like I have played a lot of finals which I should have won at the international level, especially like, for example, the Indian Grand Prix in Bitburger, the Indian Grand Prix, sorry, the Grand Prix in Bitburger, and then even the Indian Grand Prix where I played the finals in both, and I got the silver medals. I think I should have converted them into gold. That was one of my major failures as an athlete, because winning a Grand Prix tournament was my overarching goal. Like that's where I wanted to be, and I was so close to achieving it, but I just didn't achieve it. I reached right at that place where I could, become achieve that goal, and I just couldn't achieve it throughout my career. So that was a failure, I think, a major failure on my part. And I think, but that is, like I told you, that's where I realized that that's where I get my hunger from, that's where I get my curiosity from, that's where I get the drive to keep working hard, to not be satisfied with being what I have done. I kind of moving on, being humble, because I think, because I've pushed myself in a completely different territory when it comes to academics, when it comes to the work that I'm doing right now, I have to be humble. I yes, I get some kind of knowledge as an athlete and with my masters and all of that, but I also realize that I'm just a 2-year-old in this big universe of the social sector, and with such great people doing such great work. So I also, that's why I think I come from a place of humility. I try to be as approachable to people, and I don't have the airs of, oh, I'm an athlete and listen to me. I mean, I don't try not to do that. And I think another thing that not achieving my badminton goal has helped me do is that it has basically what do you say? I think it has made me more sensitive to the sports ecosystem in large. I mean, the underrepresented, right? It has made me more sensitive to the underrepresented people in the sports ecosystem, be it women, be it athletes who are not maybe the best in the business, but are still athletes who still work hard every day, but are not able to make it as big. I've become more sensitive to all of these underrepresented people in the ecosystem, I think, and that, I think, has been a strength. Other thing is that I have started treating success and failure as the same. I mean, I don't celebrate anything as much. I don't go diving when I fail at something. I take it at what it is. I know there will be another chance that I will get, and I will try to rectify it. So I have tried to understand how do I need to kind of gel with both, and I kind of try to be in the middle path of it, because I've seen so much success and so much failure as an athlete, that I know that you cannot fly too high when you succeed, or you cannot go too low, because it changes every day. So you don't take any of it too seriously. You kind of keep doing your job, and success and failure will keep being a part of it. So I think that my biggest failure is being number 2 and never being able to convert that to being a gold medalist at the international levels that I played. And these are some of the fortunate learnings and the fortunate lessons that I've taken from that failure.
Okay. I think all of us, me and also the viewers, have a lot to learn from whatever you have told just now.
Thank you so much.
Because I'm sure all of us, including me, have gone through such experiences in different fields, of course. And so what I think we can learn from you is that every cloud has a silver lining, and we shouldn't just give up because we fail once or twice. As you were talking about your passion or interest, if you truly love what you're doing, you will continue to do it. I think that's important for us to understand.
I think it is just the fact of the matter is that if you start enjoying, first of all, understand what you enjoy. That is one thing that it's not very easily that comes to people, right? It's a journey for a lot of us to actually understand what we love, right? Because what you love doesn't always translate into money, for example, or it may not always translate into fandom, or it may not translate into getting a great following on Instagram. It may not, so you have to just make sure what is it that you love. Is it the fandom that you love? Then you will have to do things to reach there. If is it the money that you're after, does that give you the kya bolte hain, the thrill of it is money, then that is the kind of thing that you will have to do. So I think it's very important first to understand what you love, and once you actually identify that, then the second thing to do is just enjoy the journey, because I think then once you start doing what you love, it really doesn't seem like work, number one, and you can keep at it for hours and you will not complain about it because you just love what you do. And you have to just enjoy the journey, because if you keep looking at the destination, that is really not guaranteed. That is something that sport has told me, like it has shouted over my head, that you cannot guarantee success, you cannot guarantee a gold medal, you cannot guarantee any damn thing. Life is that uncertain. What you can guarantee, I think, is your effort, is the love for the thing that you do, the decisions that you take. I mean, have you taken informed decisions to reach the destination that you have? Because there's a lot, what we don't understand is there is so much out there that we don't know or is not in our control, right? I mean, we live in a society where so much is dependent on luck. There is so much dependence on how other people perform, how other people do things. And your success is not just your own, it's a success of so many people doing right things at the right time. So you have to understand all these things, and I think if you keep at it, if you keep at doing what you love, you keep working hard at it, success is going to come. It is going to come, and but don't be too focused on I want success tomorrow and not day after. And let it come. I think just enjoy what you're doing and just focus on giving your best. I think things just happen really well if you do that. Yeah.
Okay. They were great suggestions for all of us.
Thanks, Pranusha. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know. I love to talk, as you know now. So so I'm not sure if I made sense for all of you guys.
Definitely you did. I loved listening to you.
Great. Thanks for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Pranusha.